this manna, Mike. I'm not sure what you own, but this here is on the mark. Like a spiral from a 5-star recruit, we throwing darts, really focused. WD-40 couldn't stop the way we grind it. In the trenches, putting that work in, I relate to all my linemen. This is for the men, the boys do not belong here. Tiptoeing to the top, we doing cone drills. The hottest show in the world, you don't even gotta search. Steady putting in work, you see the sweat up on my shirt. They wasn't aware of us at first, we wasn't on their radar. Now every play that we make, they gon' say, oh, similar to a razor blade, we gon' stay sharp. The news ain't official if it's not on the mark.
What it do is Wednesday. We're up here on the Marc Show, powered and sponsored by Epic Sports Apparel. Every play I compete, man. Glad to see you. Glad to be up. Man, it's been cold around here, man, the last couple of weeks, man. Shout out to all my people in the H trying to get from up under that snow, man. But, hey, we're back at it on the Marc Show, powered and sponsored by Epic Sports Apparel. Every play I compete. Got a special guest in the building, man. We're going to talk some Florida-Texas rivalries, ball. Got my guy from the platform, from DR Sports, and as well as Prep Red Zone Florida. One of the best scouts in the business, a national scout, my guy Drew Johnson, down in the state of Florida. But he also, this is my guy, my right hand when it comes to everything, the platform and what we do with the platform. We're going to talk about that as well as kind of recap the first Road to the Crown tournament down in the H with DR7 as well, man. My guy Drew Johnson in the building. Drew, what it do?
Man, yes, sir. Thank you for having me on, Marc. Hope you can hear me well, man. Much respect to what you do here on the Marc Show. You do a hell of a job. You're all over the place, right? So just glad to be on here this morning, brother.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you giving us a little time. But for the listeners, man, what we like to do is kind of give a little background on how you got into what you are doing now. Of course, we met several years ago, and it's just one of those times when you meet people and you know that you have a connection. And I kind of told Drew, I said, hey man, we're gonna work together in some form or fashion. And when we started this thing with DR7, with Dedication Respect Sports, that was the first guy that I wanted to reach out to. Shout out to Jonathan and Louise Mumphrey. And when they asked me about forming writers and scoutings for DR7, this was the first guy that was on my list. This guy is entrenched in what we do. Like he says, boots on the ground, in the mud, got it out of the mud. But, I'll let him tell you. Kind of tell me how you got into it. I know you got deep ties down in the state of Florida. Just talk to us about that.
Yeah. I guess just to go in a little memory lane, right? Definitely started off this thing as a young college student, right? But even before then, you probably can relate, just playing the game myself.
Right.
So, of course, I grew up playing the game all the way up to the high school level, college, almost the college level, but I played the game my whole life, right? So anyway, I told myself any way I could stay around the game throughout college or whatnot, I was going to do. So I ended up going to community college, man, probably like a lot of you guys. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I took a newspaper class, Marc, you feel me? And I wanted to cover a little bit of football. So I ended up doing that when I was a young man, you feel me? And it helped me create certain type of interview skills, and it helped me realize I got the gift of the gab when it comes to networking and connecting to people, especially in our community. So that took me from there, man. I ended up going to UCF where I ended up working for Sports Illustrated, interning for them. I was the main beat writer for our school's newspaper. I ran our NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists. We have started back up our organization there to where we were helping kids out, getting them into the media room, getting them familiar with what it means to be a journalist. So that's really what I wanted to do. But man, it was one weekend, Marc, and we had Brian on the show early this morning. I was working with Sports Illustrated, and the guy told me to come out and help him cover a 7v7 tournament, right? So I came out there, not on a whim, but just open-minded, and I fell in love with the whole environment, just the dogness that it takes in these type of settings, seeing the kids perform like they do outside of the Friday nights. So I was really just opened up to a whole new world about 4 years ago with 7v7. And since then, man, I took the scouting route and the recruiting route. That's really what I'm about. As you know, man, boots on the ground. I try to be everywhere I can. And something that's really helped me stay disciplined and stay true to the game is just wanting to help athletes and students in general, right? Especially coming from where I come from, seeing kids, from all walks of life. Any way I can help a kid get to the next level and help their parents out, whether that's, seminars that we do, the education, the financial education, to knowing what it takes to make it to the next level. These are things that just, that keeps me going, that gets me up in the morning to continue to write articles, to continue to post. It's all about the kids, man. Any way I can help them progress in life and be successful, not just 4 years, but 40 years down the road. Shouts out Coach Grant. He said that this morning, man. So that's where it all started, Mark. Just being a young man, being hungry like these kids are. I tell these kids, I'm still just as hungry, you know what I mean? So I've always been passionate, but when I found my lane, I took it to another level, brother.
Well, listen, man. I recognized your grind immediately. I'm that type of grinder as well, and that's kind of how we hit it off. Was on a 7-on-7 field in Florida. Brian Smith is a guy that, shout out to my guy B. We've been talking real heavily the last couple of weeks. He'll text me. He was at the Battle Miami talking about guys, or anytime anything pops off in Texas, he always hits me up about who's the next guy up. And, the same thing, that type of mentorship is what Brian brought to the table when we first met. Mm-hmm. We started out with Championship 77 was when I first going down to Florida and then transitioning over to Dedication Respect Sports. Brian Smith has always been one of those guys. And if you want to know about recruiting, anybody in the state of Florida, I know that's his neck of the woods, but nationally, this is one of those guys. So I share the same sentiments about Brian Smith. Shout out to Brian Smith from Locked On.
Shout out to B, man.
Locked On Seminoles. But Florida, let's talk about that a little bit. I know there's always a thing that, we kind of have that camaraderie, that running joke or barbershop type mentality, competitive mentality when it comes to Texas and Florida. But the state of Florida is one of those areas, one of those states where they produce talent religiously. In the last 5 years or 6 years that I've been going down there to cover tournaments and camps and things in Florida, I know there's a reason why the Ohio States, the Notre Dames, even the University of Texas A&M, and even all the way to the West Coast, go to the state of Florida for the skill positions. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, man. You already know, man. I rock with my Texas guys. It's kind of like second home now because we relate. Florida and Texas, Georgia, California, like football is religion. You know what I mean? So it's a year-round thing where you're going to get unmatched athleticism, of course, speed and whatnot. But when I take a look around the country, Mark, and I look up states that's up north, you know what I mean, some of Kentucky's or whatnot, these states don't really focus on year-round football. That's one thing we got an advantage of. They might drop the football after December, after the fall season's over, but states like Florida and Texas are year-round, and it starts with 7v7 to camp season, to showcases, to summer ball, all the way to the fall. You know what I mean? Kids are always doing something, and if not, they're playing basketball or baseball. So that's what these states are known for, is producing elite talent. And, of course, Florida, man. It's something different in the water when you look at the speed. You can find a speedy kid on the side of the road. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's what I say about Florida. It's something different in the water. But, man, obviously the quarterbacks are starting to turn up a little bit. It starts with guys like Balin Trujillo out in the Central Florida area, some other guys out in the Tampa area, B.J. Hall, and even now to the Naples area. So Florida's also starting to produce some quarterbacks as well. I know it's heavily known for the wide receivers and the defensive backs. You can come find a gadgety piece at the receiver, or speedster, or a guy like Jeremiah Smith, who you guys just seen in the national championship game. Or you can come find ball hawks, you know what I mean? Ball hawk defensive backs,
right,
that can play at the next level, like a Deion Sanders, and I can go on and on and on from the guys that come out of Florida. But yeah, these states right here, along with California and Georgia, are really unmatched when it comes to producing speed, physicality. If I want to go get some linemen and stuff like that, bigger guys, I can go out to Texas. But for sure, if I want some speed, I'm coming to Florida.
Absolutely. I think you hit on something about the quarterbacks coming up with the Noah Grubbs, the Brady Harts, Some of those
Wow.
guys that I had a chance to see coming to the state of Florida. I know Pokeway. I was watching a little bit after we got done
Yeah.
this morning, or for the show tonight. Talked about
Yeah.
Coleman. Really showed out.
Coleman.
I mean, when
Wow.
we're talking about, with the Keyshawn Hendersons and all these guys that were down
Yeah.
there, in his opinion, he
Yeah.
thought that Coleman was one of those guys that really stepped up and made his stock rise this weekend. Just talk about the state
Yeah.
of Florida, on the landscape of college football. I know that, Miami had a big year. I know that you're a Florida State guy. And they fallen on some
Yeah.
hard times. And the University of Florida, you got a chance to see DJ Lagway, a Texas guy that's I think is coming into his own down there. And then those
Yep.
UCF Knights, they're in the Big 12 now. I know that you keep up with them, but Florida's always been that state, man. That's
Hmm.
been had a plethora of talent. Just talk about that and how it affects college football.
Well, you mentioned it, man. Of course, I can go. I have our own show about some of the talent that's come out besides quarterback. But we got to talk about this 2026 quarterback class. You mentioned the kid Darion Coleman, who had a hell of a weekend down at Battle Miami. He has. I mean, of course it's different in shirts and gym shorts. But Mark, it being a scout, man. Some kids just have natural arm talent, natural cannons on them, ability to go through their reads and put the ball in the right spot. I mean, besides the tangibles, man, his shape and whatnot. I don't know if there's another quarterback that has a better natural arm than Darion Coleman, and that's even with the Brady Harts and the Noah Grubbs in that 2026 class, the Dia Bells, right, the Texas commit. So just taking a look at this 2026 class, obviously, I mentioned Notre Dame commit Noah Grubbs, Darion Coleman's committed to University of Miami, Dia Bell, for my Texas guys. South Florida kid. He's committed to Texas out of American Heritage. My apologies. And you can go down the list. Brady Hart, he just reclassed. He's another 2026 kid that was committed to Michigan, but ended up reclassing and committing to Texas A&M. That's another kid. But you also got guys like Will Griffin. Mark, he's out of Jesuit High School. He's a Florida commit. This kid's about 6'4", 6'5". If you watch college football, you know Tim Tebow. This kid gives you that type of vibe, right? This kid will run right through you, and he'll throw a dime if he needs to. I can just go down the line. You got Michael Clayton as well. He's a Illinois commit, another 2026 quarterback that you guys need to know about. But this 2026 class, and I'm sure the 2027 class for Texas may be unmatched. But when I take a look at this overall body of quarterbacks from Florida, this might be the best that I've seen for the last decade or even more, man, for real.
Well, I mean, you've seen these guys, and you're kind of a guy that keeps up with this. You do a great job of staying relevant with some of the top guys in the state of Florida. That's why we had you on today. We're going to get to the tournament as well here in just a little bit. But just the recruiting aspect of how these guys start to shape up. The advantage that you have is you get to see them early identification when it comes to recruiting. You just talked about these guys who, were underclassmen are now becoming rising seniors and rising juniors. How important is it from a scouting perspective that, guys like you, guys like myself, get a chance to get early eyes on, now it's the 2028s and 2029s and some 2030s. How important is that when it comes on the landscape of college recruiting now?
Man, that's why I respect, organization like DR7 so much, you know what I mean? And we'll talk about that a little bit more. I'm sure you got questions about it. But being able to identify kids early on is critical in states like Florida and Texas where it can be oversaturated and kids can get left out. So that's a huge aspect. But being on the radar, man, that's something you want to do. When you're talking about recruiting, you want to get in front of the right eyes. You mentioned that a lot, right? And that's a huge aspect. Going to these showcases, going to these camps, and playing with some of these 7v7 tournaments. You want to make sure you're in the right situation to get in front of the right eyes and get on some of these radars early on. And I'm glad we're starting early on with the kids early and earlier because they get acclimated to what it takes to not only build relationships but start building their brands, man. We see a lot of kids, whether it's from middle school or 14U to 15U, that might make some plays that catches some eyes, but they don't have a social media, right? Or they don't know what it means to get recruited. They don't know what it means to get tapped on the shoulder and say, hey, you made a good couple of plays. What's your name? So to any way to, they can start building that aspect to their game up, because it's not just football, Mark, as we transition to NIL and transfer portal. The window is shrinking, right? The college recruiting is getting dominated by, the transfer portal kids, or some of these kids that might have an extra year. So any way kids can get identified earlier on, it's going to help them in the long run, whether it's getting on the radar of a scout like a Mark Henry, a Drew Johnson, a Larry Bluestein, somebody like that, or if it's getting on a college radar, because as you know, Mark, kids are getting offers in 2028 now. They're getting offered in 2029. You got guys like Al Pops. You got guys around the country that are scouting and literally putting articles out and content out on 8th graders, on middle schoolers. So the earlier you can get identified, the earlier you can get on some of these recruiting sites, earlier you can get articles written about you, build relationships, building your brand. You got to nobody's gonna put you out there better than yourself. So you got to maximize your recruiting window for sure, Mark.
Well, I think maximizing it early, and then you mentioned something about building your resume and things like that. Now it's paramount that you get that done, and we're going to dive into that here a little bit about things that we talked about at the tournament. But let's shift gears a little bit. Shout out to DR Sports, DR7, the first Road to the Crown tournament down in Houston. Man, it was frigid. Now, the conditions were not ideal, but we made it through, and the teams made it through. This was the first installment of the first tournament. You got the Villages coming up. We'll be down in Drew's neck of the woods February 1st and 2nd. Then we come back to, shout out to the North Crowley Panthers. We'll be at North Crowley High School for the Road to the Crown. DFW be another Texas tournament. But this was one that we got a chance to see some early talent that we've been talking about, early exposure for these guys. And this is the avenue or the benefit of 7-on-7 in the off season. It's an off season sport. It's an off season, if you will. In the way that we run it, it's kind of like a camp setting where you get multiple reps against the best competition, and you get a chance to perform on the stage, and you have guys like us with the platform that we are there to expose the unexposed. What did you get out of this tournament? And I know you watched the QBs heavily. Talk about some of the standouts after you talk about this weekend.
Man, DR7, man, we kicked off the Road to the Crown over at Waller High School this weekend. Shouts out to Houston, man. Like I said, I really, really rock with Houston, the Dallas area. But, boy, y'all tried to freeze the Florida boy out this weekend, man. It was if you didn't have your gloves, you didn't have your face mask, I don't know how long you was out there on that field. But we battled through it, the wind conditions and whatnot. But shouts out to, Jay Monk, Jonathan Monk, and Miss Lanice, man. DR7, has built one of the top 77 environments in the country, not only because of the competition, which I'll get into, but from the media team, right? You got the top media team in the country following kids around, creating highlight plays, interviewing kids. A lot of 7v7 for your parents, your coaches, and players. Majority of 7v7 companies are not offering you that, right, when it comes to the media side of things. And when you add in the platform, when you got scouts there literally working for the tournament, identifying kids and standouts, you got a Mark Henry, you got a Nick Gradney tapping you on the shoulder from 8U to 18U. You can go find articles following the tournament specifically on your kids. This is unmatched. So when you sign up for a DR7 tournament, guys, you're going to get the best media team, and you got legitimate scouts following you around. And one thing that DR7, is unparalleled for is the level of competition, right? You're not going to be able to just come here, wear your Superman cape, and try to do some video game type stuff. No, you're gonna have to play football. If you're a quarterback, you're gonna have to go through your reads. You're gonna have to know your coverages. You're gonna have to know where your go-to receiver is. If you're a DB, you're gonna have to know what your coverages are as well. You're gonna have to be fluid in your hips. You have to use your hands a little bit. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to be vocal. So that's one thing DR7 does the right way. Not all events are created equal, but when you're playing at one of these tournaments, you're ensured to get top competition, and you're also getting in front of the right eyes, as we mentioned, with coaches and media guys out there. So for any of the under the radars, man, you definitely want to be at events like this. But let's take a look at some of the standouts at DR7 this weekend. I know Mark, he knows I'm a quarterback guy for my On the Mark fam listening. I'm a big quarterback guy. I gravitate towards those guys when I'm out there on the field. But really quick, man, before we get into some of those, Mark, I got some 2025 kids. We mentioned early identification, but 7v7 provides kids the opportunity to also jump on these college radars, the seniors, right, that might not have committed yet, that want to get some extra work. These are the guys that I like to pay attention to as well. I got 2 for you, or maybe 3, Mark, that I want to throw out really quick. I know we're on time. But I got Keelan Harris, man, Texas Fury kid, as we mentioned on our IG Live. We went live on the platform VR on Instagram. And for the rundown tonight, man, Keelan Harris is one of my top standouts. Mark, you know, first thing first, the kid's going to pass the eye test, right? Even if I don't see a kid play, if I see a 6'2", 290-pound kid, I mean, it checks a box. You know, it's going to have to. But when you go see that kid also go out and perform on both sides of the ball as a receiver and a defensive back, he definitely has to be on my list. A kid that I have to put in front of college coaches, because that's what we want to do, right? At the end of the day, I feel like we got a gift of the gab, Mark Henry, Drew Johnson, where we can really identify talent that can perform on Friday night. So I'm looking for certain traits and things that I can see that can translate, and this kid had them all. Showed off strong hands, ability to win one-on-one matchups on the offensive side, and you go see him on defense, show off his versatility, his physicality stands out. He was one of my top dual threat players this weekend. Another kid that we've all seen, shouts out to our guy Ben Spicer, does a great job with his video content. He had a video of Clint Rochelle. I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but this kid deserves all the spotlight from this weekend in DR7. Had all of our eyes on him. Mark, we were watching it together. When you see a kid, 6'3", 190 pounds, lines up on the defensive side, juking and jiving everywhere, eyes, ball hawk, high IQ, but that's not really his main position, right? That's what the 7v7 offers. But when he gets on offense, Mark, unguardable, right? Shouts out to Clint over at Texas Tap, helped them win the 18U championship. But it ties into Friday nights, man. This kid had over 1,500 receiving yards with 16 touchdowns during the regular season, man. That production just speaks for itself. It was a matchup nightmare this weekend, Mark. I believe he has a Houston offer, whatever it is, man. This kid definitely needs to make a decision here pretty soon because he has next-level potential. And really quick, man, just one more for you, man. I know you're talking about the Jacoby Dixons out there. We have some big-time names out there as well, right, for the people that's listening. But just for these under-the-radar kids, man, I'll go 15U, right? Zamarian King. I've mentioned him 2 times now, but it's stuck in my head, Mark. This kid, I look for true dogs when I'm in this setting. You can't necessarily get all the traits what a kid's going to show you when he's in pads. But when I see a kid have the ability to back up some talk with back-to-back straps, interception plays, showing off excellent instincts. These are traits that we're looking for, Mark Henry's that we're looking for, right, on a DR7 weekend. I'm looking for certain traits, athleticism, and this kid showed it, man. So that was Marion King, Keelan Harris, and Clint Rachel, man. These were 3 of the kids that I wanted to shout out from the athletes. And if I got some time, I'll talk about a couple quarterbacks. You let me know, brother.
Absolutely. I agree with you on Clint Rochelle. The film matches up with what we saw. We're talking about a guy that's explosive off of the line. He's got the frame that when he gets to a college program, it's just going to mature, and I think he's going to flourish. I think this is the reason that you do this, is you see these kids that kind of fly under the radar. Now, if you look at the 2025 class in Texas as a whole, the receiver position is heavy, very loaded. And guys like this will go and fly under the radar just because this is such a heavy class of top flight receivers from the top to the bottom. But you can always flip a coin on either side of the town, from east to west to north to south in the Houston area and find a hidden gem like this. This is the reason you play these tournaments for a guy like this. And I think he's a guy, 2 years down the line, we could be talking about that could be a really good college player at the next level.
Yeah.
And when you talk about Harris from Texas Fury, Team Texas Fury, this is a guy that's going to make some plays if he gets the opportunity. And I really think that those 2 guys that you brought up is the reason that you have what we do in exposing the unexposed with the platform is to give you the guys
Yes,
to put
sir.
them up on a platform where they can be seen, and college coaches will get a chance to see these evaluations that we continue to write and we continue to put out after these tournaments. This is the reason
Yeah.
that this is done. But I think both of those
But
guys have next level talent in the class of 2025. I think they will find homes, but you have to make a decision soon, and we'll tap in on that
soon.
before we get off. Today, talking about making a decision now for those guys that are still on the bubble, and
Yeah.
for everybody that's listening, there's a big camp coming up tonight, and I'll talk about that for 2025s. But I'll talk about a few guys that I was very high on this weekend as well.
Hmm.
Andrew Wood, a guy from
Yes.
Underdogs, top 2028 quarterback from the weekend over at Tomball High School. Big frame, probably about 6'2", maybe about 210 pounds. Really, really undefeated dogs was the team. This was a guy that really stood out. The first time we had a chance to get eyes on him, I think he's due for a big 2025 when he gets a chance to get up on the center. Also, a teammate of his, a standout running back, Ian Thomas, big frame, probably about 6 foot, maybe about 185, 190, but he was playing receiver. And when I talked to him, I could see the ball skills. But this guy, when you turn on the tape, he's going to be a top running back down in the Houston area in the next couple of years that you'll hear about. And getting identified early is something that's going to benefit him well. I think with a good camp season and continued development in 7-on-7, this guy's going to be taking that next step when it comes to Friday nights. Ari Jackson is a lengthy corner from that same team, about 6'2", maybe about 175 pounds. Really, really plays the passing lanes well. He was a guy that stood out to me on Saturday as well. Bryce Victorian, a 2027 receiver that made some couple of head-topping catches, man. Shout out to my guy Pat. Was there as well. We were both watching him, and you can see the footage, man. I kind of told him right before it. I said, this guy, I watched 2 games, and this guy was a playmaker. Not just his length, but his ability to get off of the ball and get open, make himself available. Was a hands catcher, a guy that could catch away from his body and do well in space. That's what you're looking for, and that's the reason that you use 7-on-7 as a tool to get yourself better in the offseason. Is for these skill guys to get these reps, because if not, they don't get a chance to get competitive reps in a competitive environment, just running routes on air or just working on the fundamentals.
For real.
You have to have this if you're doing it the right way, and we talk about these things,
Right.
and, barbershop talk or on the internet. Well, what's the benefit of 7-on-7? These are the benefits that come with doing it the right way. It's one of those things that you have to know what you're getting into, and you have to be being coached properly. It has to match up and translate to Friday nights, and that's the big thing that we get out of these tournaments. Is when you ball, you get to call and you get someone talking to you or tapping you on the shoulder and say, hey, let me talk to you for a second. You've done something to set yourself apart or be special. And that's kind of what you're looking for when you go into these tournaments. Drew, talk about, when you're at these tournaments, what are some of the things that you try to see from these guys that, get your attention?
Yeah, so I guess great job breaking that down, Mark, for sure. There's a lot of things I could piggyback on, but it's different for every position, right? Of course, I told you guys I gravitate towards the quarterbacks, but I'm looking for certain traits, the attitude. Is he coachable? For you DBs, you're gonna get beat, right? So is he gonna keep thinking about it getting beat, or is he gonna go move on to the next play? These are certain things that can translate on Friday nights just without looking at a kid's athleticism. You know what I mean? Certain intangibles that we're looking for. But for sure, man, my quarterbacks, I'm looking for your footwork. I'm looking to see how much training has he actually put in. For the quarterback guys, you can tell off rip, you know what I mean, looking at his hits, his drop steps. So those are the first. I'm always looking at a quarterback's feet. That's one thing. His shoulders, is he square? And just the small things, right? Is he going through his reads? Is he staring down his receiver? These things are going to translate on Friday nights, and it's going to end up with you being sacked or getting hurt. So I don't want quarterbacks falling into the bad traits, but those are things that you can definitely work on: your timing, your chemistry with your receivers, your ball placement, and your rollouts. Right? We see kids; they don't just stand there in the pocket. but they also can roll out sometimes, right? These things that you can work on in the off season. For our wide receivers, we're looking at your releases, at your different releases, your press release, split release. How are you using your hands to get off? You know what I mean? To use space. We watched Jeremiah Smith this weekend. How are you creating leverage? You know what I mean? These are things that you can work on. You can work on these certain skill sets in the off season before you get called on Friday night. When if you might not be starting, you might be number 2 on the depth chart. They call your name. Are you ready to go? Have you been working? For we got drive 7 bigs coming up. For our big men. It's not we talk about our skill set guys, our quarterbacks, our DBs, but what are you doing in the off season to put on weight? You know what I mean, or get your body in shape? What are you doing with conditioning? You know what I mean? We look at conditioning at some of these kids, at some of these 7v7 tournaments or just showcases or camps. How are you conditioned? I mean, what's your strength training look like? Are you taking the necessary steps to diet? You know what I mean? Are you watching film from last year? What are you improving on? This all is a full circle type thing. When we're out there in the field, it's not just, hey, go out there, who can head top somebody and who can make the best Instagram reel or whatever. Like, nah, that's the difference between us. Like, we out there looking for certain things that we can put in front of college coaches when we do these write-ups. We're not just, out there playing around, writing up whoever, whether it's an 8U kid or an 18U kid. Marc does a great job, even from 8U. Certain kids show off certain intangibles. The kid get an interception, he's 8 years old, made a ball hawking skill, read the play. That's certain things that we can notice early on before they get to grow into their body. So it's a lot of things that we're out there observing and noting when we're doing standouts. Of course, we're looking for standouts who did well, but we're looking for kids that we can follow along, not just from 77 through the summer period, or through the spring ball, through the summer and through the fall season. What traits did they show at a DR7 camp?
Absolutely, and we had this conversation between ourselves, and you hear things, or it's been stirred up over the internet, and like the pros and cons of playing 7-on-7.
Yeah.
I think that you have to integrate that as a part of your off season. Now, any skilled players, and even the big fellas, man, you should be participating in track and field. I think they go hand in hand.
Oh man, college coaches love to see that.
College coaches love to see that. It also gives you a chance to learn how to run and be effective, because football is about short bursts of speed and power. You have to develop those things. You have to know how to run in order to make yourself a separate different. Big guys throwing a shot put, throwing a discus that works on explosion in the hips and the shoulders and things like that. The 7-on-7 programs and the college coaches that I know encourage you to do both. You shouldn't miss a track meet for a 7-on-7 event.
Nah.
They go hand in hand. If you got a track meet, you should be at that track meet. And I know a lot of the 7-on-7 coaches that I know and organizations that we talk about and rub elbows with, they encourage that. They make their guys accountable when it comes to doing that. But some of the pros and cons that we've discussed and we talk about all the time. Just give me the rundown on that from your perspective.
Yeah, just talking to different guys from this morning, man, getting different perspectives. And from my opinion, man, I guess it's time for me to share my perspective. It's not too many disadvantages when it comes to competing in 7v7, man. Of course, my high school coaches, you don't want a kid missing team workouts to travel to damn Las Vegas to go play with a random 7v7 team. That can happen, right? It's always bad apples in anything you do, but when a kid can get extra reps and compete in a structured environment like a DR7, I don't know how many disadvantages you could have. And it's about joining the right program, too, because you mentioned kids being able to do track and field and whatnot. But also with basketball and baseball, there might be other sports. It's about aligning with the right program who has those dates written down that can incorporate that with the 7v7 tournaments. You know what I mean? That's a huge part of it. Is joining the right program. That's going to eliminate a lot of mistakes that you're going to make. So when we talk about the pros, it's a plethora amount of it. Just look at battle this weekend. We talked about DR7, but when you're a kid like Keyshawn Henderson, You can come from Houston, you know you're one of the top guys in the state. But when you go down in South Florida competing amongst the top guys around the country, you know what I mean? It just builds even an extra amount of confidence, right? Even extra amount of like, I belong. So that aspect of the game is unmatched. You might have kids at a 1A school. He might be the best in his division or class, and not playing a level of competition. He might need to be, but if he can travel on the 77 circuit and still dog kids, you know what I mean? That lets us know, like, hey, this kid can compete at anywhere, right? He can compete at Power 5, even though he might be dominating the 1A space. So 77 helps us get eyes on kids from different areas, or different. Like we talk about the Clint kid. You might not have seen College Park this year. You know what I mean? You might miss that high school, but to have him in this setting and have him in the space compete against other kids, it's unmatched. You know what I mean? And reps, Mark. It's all about reps. Some kids, as we talked about, might just go down to the park, throw routes on air with their homeboys or whatnot. Kids come from all walks of life, but when you can come compete with a Texas Fury, Night Riders, the Cat Takeovers, where it's an expectation, down here, 24K, the STE, the Raw Miamis, the Gridiron Elites, you know what I mean? These programs demand excellency, just not on the field, but off the field. They're creating better young men, you know what I mean? So it's a full circle with 77 when it comes to the pros, and getting into the right programs. So a lot of these, I'm talking to Coach Grant, it's about it's not just about the program, but who's coaching the program.
Absolutely.
A lot of these guys are former football players. A lot of these guys are firefighters. A lot of these guys are police officers. A lot of these guys are school teachers. You know what I mean? So if you can get around this group of mentors, while you're picking their brain and also learning how to be successful on the football field, I'm not seeing it. The disadvantages, of course, Mark, we see it all the time. A quarterback takes one step, reads down as a receiver, throws an interception or throws a 2-yard flicker pass that might not ever get completed on Friday nights. But, man, when we talk about those pros, man, surrounding yourself with elite competition, surround yourself with mentors, men that's done it, surrounding yourself with high expectations. These are all things that help you succeed not only on the football field but in life.
Absolutely, man. Shout out to Coach Grant, man. We go way back with it, and he had a really good team this past weekend. Shout out to my guy Charlie Cortez from the list and the head coach of the Battle Cats in 15U. Finally got him a championship on the DR7 circuit. They punched their ticket to the crown in April down at the Villages in Florida. But that's what you see when you come to a DR7 event. Is you're going to get that. You're going to get that competition level. And Saturday's always kind of laid back, but Sunday that notches, that dial is turned up a little bit.
Our referees can tell you that.
Absolutely, man. Shout out to my guy Sean Solo, head ref.
Shout out Sean,
some of those guys, man. They really, really focus on giving you the best product out there, and that's one thing when you get full circle everything top notch at a DR7 tournament. But Sundays it's a different vibe. It's win or go home, because you can fight and nip and tuck on Saturday and be undefeated, but then you can leave home at, especially at 9 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, and be done. You know what I'm saying? If you don't play your cards right, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where you have to dial in, and I think that's what makes it special. Is the Sunday is that flip the switch, man, and you start to see the dogs separate themselves on Sunday. It's kind of a feeling out process, if you will, on Saturdays, where you kind of want to see things, and if I was coaching, that's a scouting type of thing, and I'm scouting the competition in my bracket to see, and then you kind of come back Sunday and you full throttle with it. You mash the gas. You know what I'm saying?
Shout them up, man. Crown Sunday. You feel
Crown
me?
Sunday.
Hey, for the people that's listening, everything tenses up. The referees know it's a different vibe. The onlookers, especially the kids, of course, but us as well.
Absolutely.
Crown Sunday it's a different vibe.
It's a different vibe, man. You have to come on with it, man. But before we get out of here, just your thoughts on the recruiting process. We talked about this a little bit earlier, and I think that you gave a real good perspective of talking about these guys that haven't made a decision yet. The second signing day is coming up in a couple of weeks. For you guys that have an opportunity to play at the next level, you can look at the numbers, man. For high school athletes coming into college, it's less than 10%. It's between 7 and 8% that get a chance to play at the next level. When we talk next level, we're talking about NAIA, Division II, Division III, FCS. It's not just the Power Fours or the Group of Fives, Division I. You have to take advantage of your opportunities. Before I let you go, Drew, tonight over at North Crowley High School, shout out to Coach Gates and the North Crowley Panthers or high school over there, the football coaches. They're getting guys together tonight. I think it'll start at 6 o'clock for the big fellas and at 7:15 or 7:30 for the skills. They're going to have college coaches on campus. So if you're 2025 and you hadn't gotten signed up and you're watching this, you should be able to tap in and get over there at North Carolina High School today. It could be your final opportunity to get in front of college coaches live right tonight.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
It's
what
free.
An opportunity.
It's free. It's free. There's
Yeah,
nothing that you have
hard.
to pay. You just have to show up and grind out and put yourself right there. Bring your transcript with you. They say, unofficial copy. Because last year I went and there were some guys that left with offers that night. So, but taking advantage of the opportunity and the right situation and getting in front of the right eyes, Drew. We talked about early identification. Just shed that that last little tidbit before we get out of here. How important, and I think the one thing here's we'll go into this. Is having the right exposure through social media. We talked and we had parents and players that didn't have social media. When we talk about social media, we're talking about Twitter. This is where college coaches live. They don't really hover or get on Instagram unless it's something amazing. But when you, in my opinion, if you're from 7th grade on up, even 6th grade, and you don't have a Twitter and you're a really good player, you're kind of selling yourself short. Talk about that a little bit.
Man, well, 2 questions. I'll start with the social media aspect. Is nobody's going to brand yourself better than you, right? It's a new landscape. It's a new age of high school and college football. So the earlier you can get acclimated to posting your highlights, networking, communicating with college coaches, that's going to help you in the long run, especially if you're one of those guys or kids that think you're like that and have opportunities to maybe lock in some NIL deals. You're going to want to start building your brand early on. But it's nothing that hurts us as scouts more to the core, man. When we see a kid that just balled out, that had a hell of a game, we go tap him on the shoulder, ready to expose him, and he doesn't have a social media or he only has an Instagram. I can say for myself, I'm sure Marc as well, talking to college recruiters and coaches and position coaches, it's probably about 1%, that gets on Instagram actively, that goes out and look for kids to scout. It's already hard as it is, and they got a bunch of stuff to worry about with the portal now and stuff like that. So the better you can to help yourself get on college radars, scouts radars, you need to do it ASAP, and that's for the parents watching, right? I had a kid this weekend. Kid was about 6'3", Marc, 6'3", wide receiver, can pass the eye test, get an offer, just walking in the room. His mom's standing right there. She's taking a picture and whatnot, and me talking to him. But I asked, "Where's the social media at?" Doesn't have nothing. Boom. Mom took that information in, created the social media that night. He already had a few followers, already had some highlights up. That's what it's about, right? That's just taking that initiative, taking that step. So it starts with maybe we need to have a platform seminar, or for our high school coaches that's watching, for 7v7 coaches, you got to educate the kids about social media, man. It's a new day and age. It ain't just Facebook, MySpace. It's Twitter now. You know what I mean? It's putting your name and your brand out there as soon as possible. If you want me to elaborate on kids committing early, I will as well.
Well, I think you said it in a nutshell. And shout out to Coach Cortez. Like you said, Twitter is a player's business card. It's your resume. And we can talk about
digital
how to
resume,
set it up.
guys.
It's a digital resume. It's a way to market yourself, and everything about exposure is about marketing, self-promotion.
Yes.
It's an easy way to promote yourself, an easy way for you to get that exposure. Of course, at the platform, we're about exposing the unexposed. Every time we're at a DR7 tournament, then for myself, Ben, you, Pat, and Nick, we do this on Friday nights. It's not just in the off season. So
Yes,
it's
sir.
not uncommon to see us on a Friday night getting it in and trying to help these kids get as much exposure as we can get.
And Mark, be professional about your social media, right?
Absolutely.
Instagram's Instagram, but when you're on Twitter, man, have your @ name easy to find.
Right.
Have your bio in place. Any accolades that you've had.
Height,
have
weight.
Your GPA, if it have your correct height and weight.
Correct height and weight.
Have your most up to date height. Have your most up to date GPA as well. All of these things need to be in front of scouts and college coaches to make it easier on them.
Absolutely.
Right, and you're gonna learn that with business. Any way you can make it easier on the customer,
right,
is one way you can sell. So you want to be able to sell yourself and market yourself the correct way, and it starts with being professional.
Absolutely. Well, listen, you've been professional. Listen, tap in with my guy each week, The Rundown, Drew Johnson down in the state of Florida. Also with the platform and DR7, man. I appreciate you giving me a little time today. Before we go, give out your social medias where they can find you.
Yeah, really quick, Mark. And for you 2025s, man, just the last tidbit, make sure if you find in the right space, man, commit. Go ahead and make that decision, man, because I know Mark probably mentioned on the show, but they cut scholarships as well. That's another huge aspect of college football. The number of scholarships is being limited as well. So make sure you find a home and make that decision. But so I appreciate everybody that's tapped into the On the Mark show. Follow my guy. This guy right here is one of the hardest workers in the game, man. I really appreciate him for inviting me on. You can find myself at Real News 102. That's on Twitter or Instagram. The Rundown, man, he mentioned it. It's going to be fired up tonight. It's doing a hell of a job. I appreciate everybody that's been tuning in. Similar to On the Mark show, man, we're about exposing the hidden gems and having some great guests on. So you can find The Rundown live tonight featuring Mark at 7:30 on Real News 102. Mark, I appreciate you, brother. You do a hell of a job.
Absolutely. That's at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. Tap in, man.
Yes, sir. My Texas guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Want to send a couple shout-outs to everybody that was watching. Jason Bisick. Appreciate you tapping in.
Yeah.
Coach Charlie Cortez, appreciate you. DR Sports, Dedication Respect Sports, appreciate you guys tapping in. R.L. Martin, one of the best scouts down in the San Antonio area. Also, my guy Kenny Matthews from Friday Night Glory and Inside High School Sports. Appreciate you guys for tapping in, man. Listen, share this episode with someone that needs to hear it. Also, it'll be up on the On Your Mark Show YouTube channel right here this afternoon, live from the Fishbowl Radio Network. Of course, the On Your Mark Show is powered and sponsored by Epic Sports Apparel. We'll be back next week from the Fishbowl Radio Network.
Hey, this Manna Mike. I'm not sure what you own, but this here is on the mark. Like a spiral from a 5-star recruit, we throwing darts, really focused. WD-40 couldn't stop the way we grinded. In the trenches, putting that work in, I relate to all my linemen. This is for the men, the boys do not belong here. Tiptoeing to the top, we doing cone drills. The hottest show in the world, you don't even gotta search. Steady putting in work, you see the sweat up on my shirt. They wasn't aware of us at first, we wasn't on their radar. Now every play that we make, they gon' say, similar to a razor blade, we gon' stay sharp. The news ain't official if it's not on the mark.